Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch after spending about 2 months with it post-launch. For those of you who are interested in my initial impressions about the system and its launch titles, I will have links to those videos which I did back in March in the description box down below. What I'm going to be doing here is talking about the current state of the system and some of the more recent games that have been released for it. In particular, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was just released this past Friday, and in a lot of ways is the next big flagship title that Nintendo has in its arsenal for this year to generally promote the new system. One thing I want to say about this particular game is that I did not play the Wii U version of Mario Kart 8. So for me, this is essentially a brand new game. And in point of fact, despite owning Mario Kart for the Wii, I did not play a lot of that game. In fact, if I sit back and think about it for a minute, it was really Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube that was the last Mario Kart game that I had any real significant experience with. And so, in a lot of ways, I'm going to have a somewhat unique perspective on this game in that I think it addresses two issues that a lot of detractors of this game might have, one of which being that it's essentially a port of a now several years old Wii U game, and the fact that these Mario Kart games have a tendency to not deviate terribly from the formula that's been established in them for quite some time now. And I think in my personal case, while I feel those two arguments against this game might be valid for a lot of people, it's not really the case for me. Because not having played one of these games seriously in over 10 years, and not having played the Wii U version at all, I'm finding myself having a really great time with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I think it's a really fantastic, well put together package. And granted, a lot of that has to do with the fact that it includes all the DLC from a previous version of the game, and the fact that it's optimized to make better use of the current hardware that it's running on. For example, when playing the game on the Switch while it is docked, you get 60 frames per second at 1080p, which I think makes the game look quite spectacular on just about any 1080p television. And there's just a refinement and a polish and a general high level of quality to this product that I think really comes across and has done a lot to put a smile on my face in the time since I've started playing it. Granted, kart racing games are not everybody's thing, and therefore this game may or may not appeal to you as a result of your general inclination towards the genre, but I think fans of kart racing games and racing games in general would be hard pressed to find a better product out there to sink their teeth into, especially if they haven't played the Wii U version. I also wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what it's like to play with the JoyCons for extended periods of time. Not only with them both combined into a single controller via the grip, but also using the left and right JoyCons as individual controllers. I have to say I've spent a lot of time experimenting with the JoyCons in their various configurations, and while I would have to admit that it's not necessarily a perfect experience playing the left and right Joy-Cons individually, I was very surprised at just how playable basically every game that I tried in that configuration was. Sure, whenever you switch from the individual Joy-Cons to the combined Joy-Cons in the grip, you definitely notice a higher degree of control and comfort in the combined mode, but it is really amazing, especially for shorter sessions, just how well those individual Joy-Cons work in the vast majority of circumstances. I will say that I do not personally own a Pro controller, so I've been unable to compare the Joy-Cons in any configuration to what it's like to play with a Pro controller up to this point. But I do have to say I've been pleasantly surprised with how well the Joy-Cons work, and I think anybody who's had concerns about their capability or about their long-term usefulness might feel a little better hearing that after 2 months of using them as my primary controllers for the system, I've become quite accustomed to them and find them to be quite satisfying to play with. On a related note, I wanted to say that I've been having quite a bit of fun playing the system as a handheld, which of course necessitates using the JoyCons attached to the tablet portion of the device. While I'm not able to make use of every Switch game in portable mode due to poor eyesight, I have been able to play several games in that way and have greatly enjoyed the fidelity and comfort and convenience of the portable aspect of the Switch. For me personally, I'll probably end up using it more in docked mode, but I have no doubt that anyone with anything close to normal eyesight would have no problem whatsoever using the Switch as a portable handheld gaming device and getting a great experience from it in that mode. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Breath of the Wild, mostly because I've been somewhat surprised to find that it's actually one of the games that I play the least on my Switch. And that has nothing to do with the quality of the game per se, as I believe Breath of the Wild is a spectacular game of very high quality. But I think it speaks generally to my tendency in recent years to focus more on cooperative games or multiplayer games. It's one of those situations where when I sit down to play Breath of the Wild and I start really getting into the experience, I can't help but think how much more I would enjoy the game if I were just able to share that experience with somebody else. There are times when I do enjoy a single player experience and it's nice to have that sort of option available, but I can't help but think how much more impressive this game would be to me and how much more excited I would be about it and to play through the remainder of it if I were able to share that experience with even one friend. And I think it's kind of a shame in a sense because looking at the game and the way a lot of mechanics work within it, I could have easily imagined a scenario where, say, the tablet that you're bestowed with at the beginning of the game gave you the ability to summon a clone or a twin of yourself played by a friend randomly into your game. In that way, people who wanted to play the single player experience and ignore that feature could have just as easily done so while still allowing people who were interested in cooperative experience to make that happen. Now, of course, I understand there's a lot of development work that's involved in creating a cooperative multiplayer experience, and given the scale and scope of Breath of the Wild, perhaps it's a bit unfair to hope for a feature such as that, especially given that it would be pretty unprecedented for the Zelda series, unless you talk about some of the GBA and portable games, which I believe did have some multiplayer components back in the day. Still, having said all that, I'm sure at some point in time I will get around to finishing Breath of the Wild, but it's surprising to me just how much time I'm spending playing other games on the Switch, given what a big flagship title Zelda actually is. Speaking of games that I have been spending quite a bit of time with on the Switch, I did want to talk at least briefly about Fast RMX, which has definitely been one of the games that I've spent the most time with on the Switch since launch. This game has a really great aesthetic, really tight controls, really exciting and innovative and interesting gameplay wrinkles in the form of its color switching mechanics and power-up consumption. It may not be the most deep or technically robust game out there, but as a launch title in particular and as a $20 downloadable title, I really have nothing but great things to say about Fast RMX. It's really a game that you should take a serious look at if you are a Switch owner and looking for something a little different from Mario Kart in the racing genre. Finally, I wanted to give an extra special shout out to Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is another game that I've spent a ton of time with on the Switch since its release last week. I think this is probably one of my favorite Switch games at the moment. As a hardcore fan of puzzle games in general and Tetris in particular, I really have a great time playing this game and really have nothing but great things to say about the Switch version. And definitely would highly encourage anybody with the system to give it a look. I think that's going to just about do it for me for this video. I'm definitely looking forward to covering some more Switch related stuff in the future, possibly doing a review of the Pro Controller at some point, taking a look at ARMS whenever it becomes available in June, and just keeping my ear to the ground and my eyes open for any sort of potentially interesting developments regarding the system. I've been having an absolute blast with mine over these past 2 months, and I really don't have any regrets about picking it up at launch. A lot of people have been asking me whether or not I feel like the hype surrounding the Switch these days is justified, and I have to say, in my personal opinion, I think it is. There's something genuinely fun and innovative and exciting and interesting about this system and a lot of the games that are available for it. And I really hope that that comes across in this video, and I hope you guys are encouraged to give it a chance and check it out if you get the opportunity to do so. As always, if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more videos from me in the future, be sure to hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.